Plans to update the Marston's Mills Village Center are taking shape. Town officials are reviewing the FY16 Capital Improvement Plan, and the Cape Cod Commission updates the 208 Water Quality Plan. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, March 25th, 2015. I'm Sarah Mannel. Marston's Mills residents will get a chance to weigh in on a project to improve the village center. The Growth Management Department will present the current plans for the project during a community meeting on Tuesday, April 7th. The meeting will be held at the Marston's Mills Community Church at 7. Officials hope redesigning the area will make Marston's Mills safer for both pedestrians and motorists. The capital improvement plan is complete and is now ready for review. The town manager's proposal is a $27 million capital improvement program. Finance Director Mark Milne says the program would be funded in several different ways.
First and foremost, the biggest piece of funding is going to be a bond issue in the neighborhood of $16 million. That's the largest portion of funding for this program. That's $5.2 million for enterprise fund projects and about $10.8 million for general fund projects. And so we will be working, if this gets approved, we'll be working on collecting all the necessary information needed in order to go out to the bond market sometime next fiscal year to issue that bond, and anything else that comes along the line in the meantime, if subsequent capital items come before the council, we'll be adding those and rolling those into the bond issue as well. But this will be a pretty significant bond issue for the town.
Town officials will have time to review the proposed FY16 capital improvement plan before a public hearing is scheduled. The Cape Cod Commission releases its updated 208 water quality plan. To find out more, Barnstable This Morning host Sarah Colvin spoke with Executive Director Paul Niedzwiecki. We share a portion of that interview with you now.
A few weeks ago, the One Cape Summit was held kind of displaying the 208 plan. And for those who may not be aware of what the 208 plan is, do you have kind of like the elevator speech as to what this is all about?
Sure. The 208 plan is, it refers to Section 208 of the Federal Clean Water Act, which encourages regional planning for water quality. And the last time there was a 208 plan done for Cape Cod was 1978. So 2 years ago, the governor instructed the commission to update that plan for the particular purpose of looking at the nitrogen problem that's seriously degrading marine water quality on the Cape.
Indeed, and from what I learned at the One Cape Summit, the plan that was created in the 70s really kind of said, if we don't deal with this now, there's going to be some issues in the future. And of course, if we think about what's happened here on Cape Cod since the mid-70s to today, it's a lot of development, a lot of issues, and as predicted, some nitrogen loading issues going on here.
Yeah, the population on the Cape has grown 400% between 1950 and 1990. So 1972, the Federal Clean Water Act was created, really sort of updated. And 78, there was a plan, but that's when the federal government was paying huge amounts of money for planning and for the construction of facilities pursuant to the plan. And most of the focus were on these sort of toxics that were being discharged through pipes. Mm-hmm. And now the problem's different. It's non-point source, it's Title V systems, it's nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus that are making their ways into the groundwater and then significantly impacting marine water quality in the case of nitrogen and fresh water as it relates to phosphorus.
Sure. So as you took a look at the Cape and about this issue and the 208 plan, really what I'm getting out of it is that it was established that you really need to look at it on a watershed by watershed basis.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit, what, for those who might not know, what is a watershed? How do you define a watershed?
A watershed is that area that basically defines if you put any liquid onto the ground, how does it get into the groundwater, and then once it's in the groundwater, what does it move toward? So there are 101 watersheds on the Cape. 53 of them were studied as potentially nitrogen sensitive as part of the 208 update. But of the 53 watersheds studied, 32 of them cross town boundaries. So in Barnstable, for example, Lewis Bay is a great example. Barnstable and Yarmouth share that watershed. The Barnstable side, for the most part, is sewered, but we're still not meeting water quality standards in Lewis Bay. Because if both towns that share a watershed, or 3 or 4 towns that share a watershed, aren't taking care of their percentage of the nitrogen, we're not going to meet water quality standards.
Indeed. So what does that mean for Cape towns as we look at solving this issue? If we're looking at watersheds that cross the boundaries, sounds like people are going to have to work together.
Yeah, I think they are going to have to work together, because the most efficient way to deal with it is on a watershed basis. So unless we want taxpayers to pay more, and unless we don't want to qualify for the kind of state and federal help I think we can by cooperating, we're going to have to cooperate. So the 208 plan starts to lay out a plan for that. Indeed.
And so in terms of the settlement that kind of started this whole process, there's a couple of deadlines that I think we need to be aware of. One is in June, correct? June 15th. And tell me a little bit about what needs to be accomplished by that date.
Well, the litigation, the lawsuit that's out there is really between EPA and the Conservation Law Foundation. So they're the only parties right now. One of the counts involved the lack of a 208 update, so the state and the region took it upon themselves to just do that, to not worry about who's going to enforce, whether there's going to, but just to try to take care of the problem, and so that's what we've done. The hard deadline is September 15th. That's the one that's in the settlement agreement, and that is the date by which EPA has to review and accept the 208 update. So obviously the state has to accept it first, so EPA and DEP have discussed sort of a June 15th timeframe for that. So we filed the plan Monday night at 10:30. DEP has it. I expect in a mid-June timeframe we'll make a decision on it and then move that forward to EPA for final acceptance September 15th.
Great. And so, in terms of the work that needs to be done, or I guess what's next, what do the towns need to do? And I would assume that the public needs to be educated. And I know the Commission has been doing a great job of creating some, the website and documents that really make it a little easier for people to digest. And I feel like this is one of those issues that is something that's a little difficult to get people to understand, but it's one of these issues that is of a large magnitude of importance for people to understand.
It is. Wastewater is always a difficult conversation to have and make interesting. So a lot of the effort in 208 has been to try to make really complex data sets more easily usable and understandable by average people that have a limited amount of time to spend on it. I think we've been successful in that regard. So that's all incorporated as part of the plan. The path forward now is there's one piece remaining. We have a June 1st deadline to designate, as required by Section 208, what are known as Waste Treatment Management Agencies, or WMAs. I'm not sure why they dropped the T in the acronym, but they do. And basically, we've worked 18 months with 170 stakeholders Cape-wide, and the 15 towns are going to be designated as the waste management agencies. So, in order to have 15 towns designated and meet the federal requirement, we have to deal with those shared watersheds. And so how are we going to get at least simultaneous consideration and planning in these watersheds? And it starts with a percentage acceptance of the responsibility for the problem. And so that's the nature of the discussion that we're going to have in 3 sets of meetings with the towns over the next 2 or 3 months.
And you can view the 208 Water Quality Plan in its entirety by visiting capecodcommission.org. The Old Kings Highway Historic District Committee meets tonight at 6:30. They're meeting in the West Barnstable Community Building. The Youth Commission also meets at 6:30 this evening. That meeting will be held at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. The Accessory Affordable Apartment Zoning Board of Appeals meets at 6:30 tonight in the Town Hall hearing room, and the Zoning Board of Appeals will follow at 7. Well, be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program, Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 7 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we will chat with Town Councilor Jim Crocker. We'll chat with Barnstable High School Athletic Director Scott Thomas. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.